Welcome to the Film Trooper podcast with your host, Scott McMahon.
Hi, and welcome to Film Trooper, filmmaking freedom for the independent. And what does that exactly mean? Having filmmaking freedom for the independent isn't being independent enough freedom because you're not dependent. Not always, because a lot of us still follow the paradigm of trying to finish our film independently, but needing to fit into the studio system, so we're somewhat dependent on still an existing structure. So to be truly independent and have that freedom of being able to make your movie when you want to and to be able to sell it and distribute it around the world and to make a sustainable living doing so, that is the ultimate goal, the ultimate freedom. And today's sponsor may just help you get there. It's a new book, How to Sell and Make Your Film Online and Survive the Hollywood Implosion While Doing It. It's available in paperback, a Kindle ebook, as well as an iBook, and an audiobook. In fact, you can get the audiobook for free when you go to survivetheimplosion.com and sign up for a free 30-day trial with audible.com. Again, that's at survivetheimplosion.com. Today's guest is filmmaker Christopher Everett. He's a documentary filmmaker, as well as a graphic designer and someone who's worked in marketing and, as any of us, on the side, has made this documentary called Wilmington on Fire. It's about the Wilmington Massacre of 1898. Sometimes it's called the Wilmington Insurrection of 1898. Essentially, I'll let Christopher go into what that was and why he wanted to make a documentary film about this very historic event that had so many ramifications for us as a nation here in the United States. However, the name of the podcast episode is How to Make Money with Your Live Screenings. And I wanted to have Christopher on because even though Christopher has finished his film, Wilmington on Fire, he has not yet released it on video on demand or any of the available platforms out there for a worldwide audience to see. He's taking his time and doing one live screening at a time to build up his audience, to build up his following before he does a major launch of his film in wider networks. But in the meantime, we get to pick his brain because he has a lot of interesting marketing and promotional techniques that all of us can learn no matter what film we're working on to help essentially make a profit whenever you do your live screenings. And this is outside of film festivals. Without further ado, here's my guest, documentary filmmaker Christopher Everett, on the Film Trooper podcast.
Well, Wilmington on Fire is pretty much a feature-length documentary on the 1898 Wilmington Massacre that happened in Wilmington, North Carolina on November 10th, 1898. And it's considered one of the only actual coups d'etats that has ever happened in America. We've had several coups d'etats in America before, but this is like the only one that was actually successful. And a coup d'etat is a violent overthrow of an existing government. And a lot of people hear coup d'etats, they think of like third world countries and other places. But a lot of people don't know something like that actually happened here. And it happened in Wilmington, in 1898. And the film kind of covers that whole spectrum of how they did it, why they did it, and the families and the communities that were impacted because of this racial massacre of African American people in Wilmington, North Carolina. But this event also helped set up the whole Jim Crow segregation era throughout North Carolina as well. And so it's a lot of historical significance in regards to, race relations, not only in North Carolina, but throughout the country.
Yeah. So when you say massacre, like, was there a number of African Americans that were slaughtered?
Well, the thing is, they didn't really keep an accurate account.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of go by certain things that they put in the newspapers back then. But when we did the research, a lot of the people that owned the major newspapers were actually a part of this massacre, of causing it. So they actually kind of minimized it back then. Mm-hmm. They would say, well, only 3 or 4 people were killed, slaughtered, but everything is good now. Peace is restored. But when you hear like certain stories from certain actual direct descendants, like we have some of the grandchildren and great-grandchildren of some of the actual victims of the massacre. And they just, recall certain stories that their grandparents and stuff passed down, to them from generations, saying there was thousands or hundreds. But a lot of people, and a lot of people actually left the city as well over like a 2 or 3 year period, just totally just left, Wilmington. And because back then, Wilmington was a slightly majority African-American populated city. But in like a 5 year period, the black population was pretty much cut in half. So it was a lot of people that were killed, but also it was a lot of people that just left and just never returned.
That's now. So when you say the coup, it's like there was a political motive behind
Yes.
what they wanted to do. Essentially,
Yes.
I'm assuming they just didn't want the African American people there in that town.
Yeah.
So by involving into a massacre, it's scaring them off and having those surviving members or families just get out. So and it's interesting about the history, like you said. It's like, we are in our school system, we've grown up in a very, sort of whitewashed or white like history, in terms, even like it's interesting that like the people in Great Britain view the independence of America as like the colonial rebellion. Like it's like it depends where you grow up. It's like these weird sort of perspectives. So here you are, this local event happens, and obviously the papers are run by white supporters of this event, so they can dictate what history could needs to be. So so when you're saying like hundreds of thousands, it could be like, say, we don't know, but it could be thousands or like a thousand African Americans, which is mind-boggling, because just recently the tragedy in Orlando, they were claiming that was like the most maybe the biggest massacre in terms of a gun spree, but and then someone else had posted that it wasn't necessarily the most horrific thing in American history. I think somebody brought up a Wounded Knee of the Native Americans. I don't remember how many people were massacred there. I don't know. Do you know?
No, not offhand. But there's been several of these type of events like the Wilmington Massacre. I think John Singleton, he did a movie a few years ago called Rosewood.
Oh yeah,
and that was about the Rosewood Massacre. And also there's been the Tulsa Massacre in Tulsa, Oklahoma, back in I think 1921. That was a major one back then. So there's been several of these type of events that have happened in America over the years. But the Wilmington one is kind of significant because it was an actual overthrow of a government along with the massacre.
Oh, so what government was in place that was protecting the? I'm trying to help me kind of see where the positioning is.
Okay, well, back then you had a thing called fusion politics. And fusion politics was pretty much, you had a lot of white farmers and also newly freed slaves kind of merging together and forming this thing called fusion. And they pretty much formed together and merged together in like some type of political alliance to put their people in office and try to make the laws more fair and balanced for everyone. And so they did that in North Carolina, and especially in Wilmington. And back then, Wilmington was North Carolina's major city. It wasn't Charlotte. It wasn't Raleigh. Wilmington was the place to be for everyone. And the political arena there was kind of balanced for everyone. And you pretty much have to go back to the Civil War to figure out a lot of this stuff. Because when you look at the people who actually pulled off the massacre, the people who were planning and plotting the massacre, they all were Confederate soldiers and majors and colonels for the Confederacy during the Civil War. And there was always speculation that when they lost the Civil War, they always kind of wanted to kind of get some type of revenge, on America. And they always said that this was it. This was the plan right here to actually do an overthrow of the government. And what better place to do it than Wilmington? So, because Wilmington it's an isolated place. It's a very weird city. It's kind of like it's like a peninsula in a way. So if you kind of control, the telegraph lines, the newspapers and all that, you can really isolate it and do something like this and kind of control the information of what's actually going on. See, all these things kind of came into play, which we break all this stuff down in the film as well. But they really wanted to get rid of this fusion government and make it, so-called white supremacist government. So that's what they wanted to usher in, was white supremacy to take over the government of Wilmington, but not only Wilmington, but just the whole state of North Carolina as well. So it just wasn't something that was restricted to Wilmington. They pretty much rigged the whole political system across the state. Yeah,
because we're talking about 1898, and I'm assuming this is like, 25 to 30 years removed from the end of the Civil War, which we know, following history, the Reconstruction period, it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Are you good?
There's a phone call coming in, and I don't know if you hear that.
No, I didn't hear anything.
Oh, so only I hear that. Don't worry, I'm going to cut this part.
All right. It's cool.
I'll have to... Let me close that out real quick. Because I'm trying to talk to you, and I hear this loud... Somebody got to figure out how to disconnect my phone from my computer. Even though my phone is quiet, all of a sudden that thing comes on. Anyhow, as we were saying, the Reconstruction period, obviously just because something comes into law and things change, it doesn't necessarily automatically people just go, okay, and it's funny, you were talking about the South, as a kid growing up on Bugs Bunny cartoons and stuff like that, I just remember Foghorn Leghorn, the rooster chicken, always talking about, the South will, or Yosemite Sam, the South will rise again. That's cartoon version of what I thought the South was,
yes.
And this is very prevalent because this is cartoons in the 1940s. So the surviving members of the Civil War of the Confederate States that were essentially still talking about that and that I can only imagine that still breeds fuel for what we're seeing today. And another note, it's interesting about the differences of maybe the Civil War was one way, of trying to preserve a culture and lifestyle, where then they lost the war and then they have to adapt to some other methods. Someone mentioned that, the last assassination of President Kennedy was will be the last type of assassination like that, because politics have evolved so much now. It's a character assassination. So it's the same concept, but now it's we don't have to physically murder, a president or a statesman or anything like that. There are different methods we can use now. So it's interesting to hear, 25 years removed from the Civil War, this was a organized plot to say we need to take over, this territory, and then having, a bigger plan behind it. What got you interested in history? I've always been, fascinated by it. I've always been fascinated by history that's not really in the mainstream. I know about Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and other things like that, but I always wanted to study and learn more about things that I didn't learn in school. And I think I was living in Atlanta, Georgia at the time when I came up with the idea. And I think about 2010, where I think I ran across something on the internet, and they were just talking about these different racial massacres that have happened in America, I guess, since the end of slavery, all the way up to, I think, the 1970s or something. And I saw Wilmington, North Carolina. I'm like, hold on, man. I'm from North Carolina. I've never learned about this history at all. And as I just started researching more about it, and I was just fascinated by the whole thing and how detailed it was and how organized it was. And a lot of people didn't really know about it. But I saw that a few people have written books on it, but I saw that no one actually did a movie on it. So I looked at it as a challenge. I decided right then and there that I wanted to make some type of documentary. I knew I couldn't do an actual real movie. I just didn't have the funds for that. Yeah.
But I could try to do at least a solid documentary about the history of it.
Yeah, it's interesting. What area of North Carolina did you grow up in?
I'm in a small town called Laurinburg, North Carolina. You probably don't know. No one probably knows where it is.
I don't know where it is.
But it's about an hour and a half from Wilmington, actually. It's in a weird spot in North Carolina. It's an hour and a half from Wilmington, an hour and a half from Charlotte, North Carolina. So it's a real small country town. There's nothing hardly here.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Now Everett, the last name Everett, being, I'm assuming you're also African American descent, your family and so on. So does the name Everett, where does that come from?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. I was just curious. One of my favorite.
My grandfather.
Okay.
My grandfather. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I remember one of my favorite football players, just little Danny and Tomlinson. I grew up a Charger fan, so he was born in Texas, and so they had this whole piece with him going back to his hometown in Texas, and he's looking at like his roots, and a historian was there with them, and finding out that his the Tomlinson was the slave owner of his. So he got this he was able to see a little bit more about his family history and stuff like that. Yeah. And I was curious about that because it's, you're growing up in North Carolina. Again, from an outside perspective, I grew up in California. I'm up here in Portland, Oregon, so on like that. And even though Portland, like the city proper, is, I don't know. They're like Portland, I guess. They try to strive themselves to be weird. They have the whole keep weird. But Oregon in itself historically has been very white supremacist and so like that. And there's still like the outskirts of the country of Oregon. The countryside of Oregon. That has a very sordid history. I think it was not until like the 1970s where they finally realized that they had a state law or a city law that prevented interracial marriages or something like that.
I think someone has a documentary out on that. I think I forgot the name of it, but someone has a documentary that talks about just the racial dividing in, I think it's Oregon. I forgot the name of it though. When I find it, I'll email it to you. But it's someone recently just came out with a documentary. It looks pretty cool. The trailer looked real good.
Yeah, well, so does yours, Wilmington on Fire. I mean, the clips that I've seen of your film, I have not seen the whole film. I've only seen the trailer, some of the clips. I've seen the artwork, and I'm assuming you had to tell me, is that your artwork?
Not mine per se. I own the art, but a guy named Wally McNair. He's out of Charlotte, North Carolina. Like him and this guy named Marcus Kaiser, they're both out of Charlotte, and they're like talented artists and graphic designers. And I've been working with them for years on different projects. So whenever I do something, I always try to incorporate art and music somehow. Like I think I sent you the little promo soundtrack, gave out for free. So I always try to do things like that. Is just a marketing tool. And I wanted to incorporate like the illustrations in the film because some of the stuff that we talk about in the film, you can't really find archival footage of it.
Yeah, I bet.
So it's like we'll have like some good information, but it's nothing there to show or nothing. So I had to find certain parts where I said, okay, let's just put some illustrations right here. But I want to kind of modernize it as well. I wanted the film to kind of have that modern feel to it. So a mixture of archival photos and stuff like that, plus powerful illustrations as well. But the illustrations are also a part of a bigger picture. I'm putting together like an art book, like a Wilmington on Fire art book, and it's going to have all those illustrations plus a whole bunch of other illustrations that kind of highlight the whole history of the 1898 massacre. So that's going to be kind of part of when we release the DVD. I know you talk about this a lot, the bundle packages.
Yeah.
So that's going to be part of the bundle set, the DVD, the art book, the original score soundtrack, and a few other things that we'll offer as a bundle set.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you sent me all the links, it was, first of all, everything was so organized. This is me talking to the audience out there. You have got to. I can't wait till you guys see this artwork because it's bonkers. It's so good. I mean, it's all of it is just top notch. It reminds me of, I'm a fan of like sort of these like jazz artwork. And like sometimes when I go to Disneyland, they have like the New Orleans Jazz Kitchen or I was a big fan of like the jazz and the swing music and stuff like that. But all this artwork reminds me of that. Yeah. But it's not. It's so not only is it so well done, but it's capturing like an emotional, I think, moment, pivotal. Like this, it's very striking. All of it's very striking, and not only that, but like looking at your bio, you do a lot of work with marketing and graphic design. The whole package is reading that way. I mean, the poster design, and every little nooks and crannies of how you put together your press kit and all that kind of stuff is just top notch. Photos from your events. You've had like 4 now live screenings.
Yeah, I've had a few. Yeah, I've had the first one we premiered in November of this past year at the Cucalores Film Festival. And Cucalores is a real big festival in North Carolina. It's been around 21 years. and it's in Wilmington as well. So I knew I wanted to, once I had the film ready to roll, I wanted to premiere it there because they do Cucaloris during the whole week of the anniversary of the 1898 massacre. So I knew right then that I'll get all the free press I want, and which I did. I got I was like in front page of all the newspapers there, magazines, everything. So when we did this, I was kind of skeptical. I was like, okay, if I can get about 30 or 50 people to come out, I'm good. But we actually broke the film festival's record, man. We broke their record for most attended screening ever. We had 600 people at the screening,
Was
plus
that
300.
I was gonna say, was that the picture? Because there was a photo of like it was great. Like everybody was filled in the theater, but you had the balconies also filled up.
That was the third screening.
Oh, third
That was
screening.
the third.
Okay, so I didn't interrupt you. So we're saying the first one you broke the record, of like
Yeah.
600 plus people.
We had 600 people at this place called Thalian Hall, and the place holds 600 people. It's downtown, in downtown Wilmington. We had 600 people there, plus we had 300 people outside that couldn't get in. And once I saw that, I was like, okay, I think I have something here. you know. So after that, man, I rented Thalian, the same place. I rented it again, and I got about 500 people for the second time I did it, but I did it on my own this time. And then that picture that you're talking about, that was the third screening I had in Wilmington, and that was in January at Keenan Auditorium. And that place holds about 1,000 people, so we got about 700 in that. And after that, I just started screening in other places around North Carolina and a few other places, and just been rolling. I said I have about eight screenings so far. 8 screenings.
It's amazing. So like I said, your packaging is very simple, but it's very clean, and it everything immediately communicates like this horrific event that's important.
Yeah.
But I was curious. I want to know how you knew to go to your local film festival, and was it just simply doing a blind submission, or did you take time to introduce yourself to the program director? Because most experts say that if you want to really nurture your opportunity, is to at least make an introduction to yourself to the program directors so they know who you are, as opposed, just to do a blind submission and sit back and wait. So how was that process, as well as once you knew that you could, piggyback off the anniversary of this event, was there any other additional marketing stuff you did? Because the nice story is, it's like, I submitted to the film festival, I got in, and all of a sudden, boom, we had all these people show up. There's usually
it's a lot more to it than that.
Okay,
what I pretty much did was I built up a nice following over like the past 3 or 4 years, even before the film was even done. And I pretty much looked at, like, like I said, I'm a fan of your podcast, so I would listen to people like you and others on YouTube. And also I looked at what I saw a lot of rappers do, meaning that a lot of hip hop artists, they'll get on a radio show, right? And they might, premiere like a song or single, and then they'll say, my album is coming out in October of this year. And when October comes, the album still isn't out, but they're always constantly promoting and also always getting on some type of radio show or whatever. So I said, okay, I'm going to try to do the same thing with my film. I would get on anyone's podcast, anyone's blog talk radio, anyone, whatever. If you wanted to talk to me about my film and where I can promote it, I would get on it. And I've been doing it like constantly for like 4 years, even before the film was done. While I was filming it, I was constantly getting on, people's, media outlet, whether it was blog talk or whatever, podcast or whatever. And doing that, it kind of made me get a little following. And also some of the people that I actually have in the film, and I actually got a few people attached to be like producers. Like this one guy, his name's Tariq Nasheed. He's an associate producer, but he has a big following. And his documentary is called Hidden Colors. And it's one of the best documentaries on Black history ever. And so I got him on board just a name. He liked what I was doing, and he liked the trailer. Then he started wearing the shirt, the Wilmington on Fire shirt, on his Ustream channel, which he has a huge following. So that kind of got me a lot of followers as well. So I did just those type of things. And when I was ready to finally premiere this thing, I was already kind of connected with the Cucaloris Film Festival because I was in their first ever work in progress documentary program. I say back in November 2013. And with that, I kind of just showed like a couple of clips from the documentary of real rough. And I actually sold that one out. Of just showing like some rough just some rough interview footage. And it was like one of their small little theaters. It was like, I think the place hold about 80 people. And I actually packed that out and sold that out, just showing a few small, rough, uncut, small clips from the film. So I was like, okay, I kind of got a nice base here going. So 2 years later, I was ready to premiere. I hit up the guy who runs the festival because I was actually already in their program, their work in progress documentary program.
Oh, perfect.
So that's how I actually got in. But I had to fight for getting the largest venue because I knew, because a friend of mine, he told me, he said, man, you need to get the biggest venue possible, because I'm a very modest person. I just thought maybe 50 or 100 people might show up. I didn't think 600, but he said, man, you're going to have to get the biggest one because you have a nice following. I was like, man, I pretty much convinced Cucalores to give me the biggest one, which was Staley Hall, because Staley Hall is very significant to the 1898 massacre, because the people who did the massacre, that's where they actually met at to organize and build the white mob and everything to actually pull off the massacre. So I was like, I convinced them and said, hey, this is significant. So we need to do it then. This is the week of the anniversary of the massacre. It's a win-win. So they loved it and it worked out. I think they're actually mad that they actually didn't double book the place, because like I said, we had 600 in there and you had 300, outside that couldn't get in.
Wow.
But we thought it sold out like 3 days before the actual screening. It sold out like 3 days before the actual screening.
That must be kind of, I don't know, creepy being in the same, like to be in the hall that organized it. I don't know if there's any residual ghosts or something that felt in there, but
yeah. Yeah. And another thing, man, I almost didn't even get into my own screening because this is what happened, right? I had to, because, I got a lot of comp tickets for some of the cast and crew and people that could actually come to the screening. So I had to wait outside and, give them their ticket to get in. And while I was doing that, everyone's getting their ticket to go in, the place is packed. And so I tried to get in there, and the lady says I couldn't come in. I'm like, what? Hold on, I'm the director. And she was like, well, we're already past, we're over fire code already. So I'm like, come on. So she told me to go up. They actually have a room at the top of the theater, which they're not even supposed to open, but they still put in like 50 people up there. So I had to sit up there with about 40 other people. And they're not even supposed to open the place, man, but they happened to open that part of the theater that night.
Amazing. So, what's the reaction? I mean, you have like 600 something people there. It's local history. It's significant. So what? Yeah. There it is. Your work, and so it's funny because everything's set up to be successful in that respect. You have a very important topic that has a cultural relevance, local relevance. So now you're like, man, this thing has got to deliver. Like the pressure's on you. Like this thing has to be
I was nervous.
executed.
Yeah, but once the film was done, because I don't know, other artists might be like this, but I can never sit there and watch my film in front of everybody. I always got to wait, or just be on the outside to wait till it's over. I just can't watch it in front of people. I just don't know why. But afterwards, I was like, okay, are people going to walk out? So I kind of went outside a little bit just to see, and no one walked out, man. And then when it was over, the whole room standing ovation, clapping. I was like, oh man, thank you.
Man, you could have two ways to go. It could be completely silent, which would be another great reaction, or
Yeah. But I got a standing ovation, man. Then we did the Q&A afterwards, me and some of the cast and crew members, and it was cool. But Cucalores, they bring a lot of big films there. Like, we actually beat out a film with you remember the show One Tree Hill? They used to come on.
Yeah.
Well, they used to shoot that in Wilmington. Wilmington used to be real big in the film industry for a long time. Screen Gems Studios is there. So the cast of One Tree Hill still has a big following in Wilmington today. And this one guy, I forgot his name, but he was one of the stars of One Tree Hill. Him and Danny Glover made a film together, and it actually showed the next day after mine, and mine still beat out theirs by like 200 or 300 people. So that was cool. Actually, that someone like myself from a small town, could do something like that. That was really, really amazing. And then seeing these other filmmakers, seeing me in, walking down the street and afterwards, and just congratulating me, saying how much they enjoyed the film, and give me the business cards, let's talk and all that. It was great.
Amazing. So let me, you were mentioning that had the idea and then you hustled and you promoted it when you could for over 2-3 years to build a following. What sort of one thing I know that a lot of filmmakers will ask or want to know, like, what do you promote when you don't have anything? I mean, I guess the great thing about the documentary side of thing, the story has already been written. It's just your job to uncover the truth as more of an investigator to some extent, and then put your artistic spin around it, as opposed to like a narrative film where you're writing it from scratch. But what sort of marketing materials did you find useful, or the approach you have useful to start promoting before the film was even finished?
Well, I know the first thing I did when I first started shooting, I shot like a teaser trailer, and I start shooting just some scenes from the film. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna use the teaser trailer to put out there. And like I said, I usually try to follow the model that I see a lot of rappers use. Like, they might not even have an album out ready to go out yet, but they'll release a single. So I said, okay, I'll release a teaser trailer and use that to promote. And then after that, for a while, I'll release a clip. I'll release like a little clip, a small snippet of something very powerful from the film. And I had like over like a couple of years, I would have like a clip, like a minute clip to release every month for like 2 years. And a lot of that stuff I didn't even use in the final cut. It was the stuff that was good stuff, but I just couldn't place it well. So I was like, you know what? Instead of just throwing it away and not using it, like I said, it goes back to what I saw a lot of hip hop artists do. They would use like songs they wouldn't put on the album. They were good songs, but they just didn't fit the album. But they would just put it out for free as like a mixtape version. Just to use it as promo material instead of just wasting it. They would put it out as a mixtape to keep their, name and music out there. So I kind of looked at it the same way with a lot of the unreleased footage that I knew I wasn't going to use, but I can put it out there. And one of those clips, I think it was Dr. Umar Johnson when he's talking about propaganda. And I just put out like a rough clip of that. And man, that thing got like about 4 million views in like a year.
Wow.
On Facebook.
Yeah.
Facebook.
I remember watching it. Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone in a lot of media outlets started hitting me up, say, "Hey, when's your film coming out?" Because they ran into the clip somehow, and I didn't think it was going to do that. I just put it out, thought it was a cool clip, and it was very rough. It didn't have anything, spectacular. The color grading was off, the sound was off, and everything. I just put like the little snippet out, and everyone gravitated towards it. I think because of a lot of the stuff that was going on with police brutality, the whole Trayvon Martin issue that happened in Florida and all that. And I think it really reflected a lot of that, not only talking about the 1898 history, but things that are going on today as well. And people just gravitated towards it. So I was mad that I couldn't really monetize it better. I just threw it out. I didn't think it was going to do that, but it actually kind of still built up my following and everything. So those are the type of things I would do. Just to release different clips and footage. The guy who did my score, he was always, dibbling and dabbling of trying to come up with a composition for the whole thing. So we would put out little snippets of that, of the score that we're working on.
Work in progress.
Yeah. So it's pretty much, giving the audience a look into the whole progress of making this film. That's pretty much what it was. And we would share like some of the artwork, the motion graphics snippets of like the opening title sequence stuff. So we would share all those things. And plus I had the promo soundtrack already pretty much done anyway. The promo soundtrack was done like a year after I started filming, but I just couldn't release it because, the film wasn't done.
Right.
So we would send out little songs here and there out there, float them around. So it was just a combination of using things that I already had to just put out there.
Let me ask you, it's sometimes just making something, just putting out there, but did you do any sort of marketing or promotional push for those materials? Because you were mentioning the propaganda clip. I could see like creating stuff like that and then doing, pushing it to some bloggers or some news outlets.
Yeah.
Oh, so you did too?
Much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like push like say like the propaganda clip, for example. And when like say if something happened, like, all right, the Orlando shooting, for example, like when that happened, like something like that would happen, I immediately would send the propaganda clip to them and say, hey, I'm working on a film called Wilmington on Fire. It's about the 1898 massacre, all this good stuff. Here's the trailer. Here's a clip. You should check it out. It still kind of relates to what's going on today. And a lot of times they'll say, yeah, I want to write a story on this. And so they'll write a story on propaganda, and then they'll mention my film, and they'll put the clip in there, and they say, be on the lookout for Wilmington on fire at such and such date. Here is his info. Check it out. So I would do certain things like that as well. Or I would go on like a lot of music blogs and share some of the soundtrack music and stuff like that. And people would share it and download it and spread it around, those things. And just some things just caught fire on its own. Pretty much the propaganda clip kind of just caught on fire on its own. It was just pretty much luck.
Yeah. No, it's important for me. I wanted to clarify because I know sometimes a lot of filmmakers, again, the short story is, I made this thing. I did this short clip. We put it out there, and it just took off. And it's like there is this other step to it. It's like you have to know what right eyeballs to get in front of in order for it to take off. And so that's why I wanted to clarify. But I also, to switch gears a little bit, being a documentary filmmaker, especially on this particular topic, at what point do you find yourself not removing yourself from the filmmaker ego in terms of like, because, the film auteur, this dream lifestyle is like, you're this artist and you have all the stuff that you're, sharing out there that it becomes very egocentric to some extent. But when it comes to the documentary filmmaker and a topic like this, at what point do you shift your focus where you realize you're now sort of a conduit or you're in service of this story, like a journalist or somebody, a historian that has to do their job to, share the correct version. So, because like I said, I was just thinking like the marketing, it's kind of weird because the marketing side of things is like there's a horrible strategy or like the produce brutality stuff that happens and you're like, well, shoot, this might be helpful. Like this film I'm working on is a historical account that history repeating itself or things like this have happened in the past.
Yeah.
Like it's weird because you kind of have to balance it out. Like, am I completely being like this marketing guy that's taking advantage of something horrible, or is it of service? And I don't. It's hard to say, but
I get what you're saying. And I had to kind of get on a fine line with that because I just didn't want to make it seem like I'm just trying to do this just to maybe get some money. Because a lot of because a lot of people do that. They say, okay, here's an opportunity. I'm gonna run with it, so I can go ahead and sell a lot of DVDs and just attach myself. But I think the reason why I pushed that clip, that propaganda clip, because it was just very powerful, and I think that people needed to hear it and see it right then. And that's why I didn't put no color grade to it. I said I'm just putting it out. I'm just gonna cut it up for that segment and just throw it out there because I think people really need to see it. And I didn't think it was going to do that. I didn't really do it for that, but once people started hitting me up in media outlets, they wanted to kind of do a story, do stories on it and kind of tie it into what's going on now. In return of promoting what I'm doing, I said, yeah, sure. Why not? I have more than that, in the film. It's a really good film, and I really wanted people to know that it's a really good film. It's a very interesting story. It's a very powerful story. So that's how I kind of always looked at it. That I'm just trying to do a service to the actual descendants of the victims, because that's why I did this. Why I did it for them, for the grandchildren and great grandchildren of the people who were actually affected by this thing, and they've all given me support. They've had my back for the whole thing, and they know how much I've sacrificed over the years to put this thing together. Pretty much use my own money, from start to finish, to do this.
Yeah.
But I got lucky. I got to tell you a story. It wasn't until, like I say, about last January, I didn't know I was going to finish the film. Everything was done. I just needed money for post-production and to pay for some archival permission right stuff. But and this goes back to why I always kept promoting even when I wasn't done. A guy in the NBA actually gave me the rest of the money. He plays in the NBA, and he doesn't really like me to tell who he is like that. But he's an NBA player, and he's a fan of he's a lover of African American history, and he hit me up. His business partner hit me up like last year, and said, "Hey, I'm the business manager of such and such. He plays for the such and such." See, I thought somebody was playing a joke. I'm like, there's no way in hell someone in the NBA knows about my film, and I'm living in Laurinburg. But he actually saw I think he heard about my film. He was actually following the film for like 2 years. 'Cause I think he saw it on some blog that he reads. And like I said, I was getting on anybody's thing, man. And see, this is why you do that, because you never know who's looking. And so he said he was actually following the film for 2 years, and he actually reached out to me because he wanted to buy a DVD. And I said that the film isn't done yet, and I need like about 20,000 to get it done. And he said, "Well, that's all you need. Let's talk." And so I was talking with his business manager. I still didn't buy it, and then until he invited me to like one of the Charlotte Hornet games. They came to play the Charlotte Hornets, and went to the game. Got me a free ticket. I met him afterwards. And he said he really liked what I'm doing. He saw the footage and everything. He wants to help me out. Gave me the money, no strings attached. And he said, "Hey, here you go." And that's how I got the film made. And it was because of all the early marketing and promotion that I did. And this guy, he was following the film for like 2 years. He was actually following it because he saw me on some stuff that he actually reads. And he reached out. He wanted to buy a DVD. And I told him that it's not done because I need a certain amount of money to finish it. And he said, "Hey, that's all you need. That's nothing. I like the film. I want to see it done. I want to see it out. Here you go." And that's how I got the film done.
Amazing. So each screening is there a common thread in terms of the reaction from the film?
Everyone. And that was the thing I was kind of most worried about. I was like, okay, this thing is a hit in Wilmington. Let's see how it does outside of Wilmington. And so the next screening I did, it was like the end of January, was in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I was a little eerie about that because I didn't know how big my reach was in a bigger city. Charlotte's kind of a big city. And there's a lot of stuff going on a Saturday night that you can do, that you could be doing instead of watching the documentary.
Yeah.
But we packed that out, man. The place hold about 230 people. We packed about 240. Had turned away about 50.
Wow.
It was packed. Like, sorry, I didn't think it was going to happen because it was it was a bigger city, but a lot of people heard about the film somehow, So I was like, wow, I've really got something. And everyone, the reaction has been the same across all races and everything. And that's another thing that has fascinated me. I thought that only probably African Americans would come and see the film, but whenever I do a screening, everyone's there, white, black, young, old, everyone. And that's what I really love to see, like everyone coming together and watching the film and getting something out of it as well. And another funny story was when we did the Charlotte screening, this one lady, she was actually running to the bathroom, right, from the thing. And then I was like, okay, why is she running? And she comes back running again, to come back. And she said that the movie is so good, I had to run to the bathroom so I wouldn't miss anything. I was like, wow. Oh. And then she ran back. I was like, I wish I could have recorded it.
Yeah.
But I didn't. But
we have one of your artists draw like a little scenario of it. Well, let me ask you. So, with this, when was the film released? It was back in the film festival. Was it earlier this year?
Yeah, this past November. Yeah,
that's right, past November. That's what you said.
Yeah.
So now that are you? What is your plan now for the distribution side of things? And have you been approached by a distribution company yet, or anything like that?
No, I haven't been approached by no distributor at all, and I'm good with it. I plan on doing it. I plan on doing it myself. And what I'm doing is I'm waiting to release the DVD and digital download on November 10th. And November 10th is the actual anniversary of the massacre. So I'm going to release the DVD and stuff, that time. And hopefully in a few months, I can go ahead and start taking some pre-orders. So I'm just getting the DVD and stuff together now and getting my bundle stuff like the art book and other things that I can kind of package and market it with it. I'm getting all that stuff together now as we speak. And so I plan on releasing it in November.
Because you also have like this a storefront, and it kind of reminds me of like Etsy or Shopify, like of the art, and it's really impressive. So like you said, you have this, you're building your bundle. I will introduce you to Christopher Rufo, who was a past guest of mine on a podcast. He and his producing partner, filmmaking partner, they made a documentary about called Age of Champions, about senior citizens competing in the Senior Olympics. But here's the deal: that film earned them over the course of 2 years $1.5 million.
Oh wow.
And there's a way they did that, and so everybody's like, "Well, wait." So if you're looking for that, I think it's episode number. Give me a second, guys. I'll cut this so you don't have to hear it. But let me double check what the episode number is.
Yeah, I want to go back and listen to that one.
Yeah, hold on. This year. Let's see. Where's my boy Christopher? It's like 9. I thought it was 80 something. Oh, here it is. Oh yeah. So I'm back. So I just found out what the episode was. It's episode number 77. So if you go to filmtrooper.com/77. Now, what they did, because I want you to meet those guys, because I think they would really, they'd be really great just meeting. They're up, one guy's in Los Angeles, another guy's in Seattle, the producing partners. But they did the same thing. They had this, it was like a short, I think it's like a 45 minute long documentary. And that's all it was. They went to the film festival circuit. It didn't do anything. I mean, they won some awards, but nothing happened. So they discovered, after a lot of trial and error, that the biggest proponent of this film of theirs was these women in their 40s that worked at like hospice centers or elderly care places. And they were using the film as an inspiration for the elderly people there. So they double down and start focusing on that marketplace. And there's this whole industry of like, selling walkers, selling hearing aid, like all this stuff. And they went to a convention, did a short presentation, and then pre-sold like $85,000 worth of like DV packages. Because what it is like, it's their movie, but they decided that they would bundle it as like a inspirational health like package. And so and the difference is these organizations, they're used to spending a lot of money in terms of licensing for, so this is a way they're able to keep recurring revenue. So an institution might buy their bundle for, any price from $85 to $269. So you would have this bundle, depending on where you are in the university structure. And so you're following this, so you get it. So those probably people listening are like, what are you talking about? So they weren't, because you probably heard me say this before, but, we're not in the film business, really. I mean, in Hollywood's not in the film business. We're in the business of license exploitation. So if you control the license, you have a myriad of ways of exploiting it. And that's what you're doing with bundling and getting everything ready. So what they did is literally license this education package to these institutions that were more than willing to spend, a couple $100 to a couple $1,000 on their licensing package versus an individual, which is like, my comfort zone is 99 cents for a rental and maybe $10 for that's where. So I think that you might have an opportunity as you build your package.
See, I'm actually looking into that, into the whole, because I've done some colleges already, and a few college folks have actually told me this. Say, hey, you should look into the whole college system, selling, the educational license for a couple $100 or whatever, you can charge for the educational license. I'm actually looking into some, some stuff like that, especially in North Carolina and also outside of it, but especially in North Carolina, because the educational system here, they were supposed to actually pay, like say in North Carolina years ago, they were actually supposed to pay a production company $500,000 to do what I did for like 20, you know what I'm saying? So the state of North Carolina is actually, looking for a film like this, so you never know. I might could work something out with the state, where, we can license this thing and get it into all the schools for a certain amount, so I'm kind of, weighing all my options with it, and I'm definitely looking into that whole educational market, heavy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because it's okay in the business world to like have a win-win situation. Winning meaning like you win because you actually make money, which is not a horrible thing, but they win too because the content you create, that you provide, is educational and informative in so many different ways. So it's okay to have this win-win thing, and and I think a lot of filmmakers need to get to that place where they have to look at creating these win-win situations, because I was reading the book by Dr. Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Influential People or Successful People. And then this concept of like, if you put yourself in a win-lose situation, then you're trying to win by making sure the other person loses, and that's sort of like the scammy thing. If you are in a lose-win situation, then you're too humbled, and it's like opening a sporting goods store and then giving everything away for free just because you're like, they win but you lose. So there has to be this place where it's healthy, where it's both win-win. So it's definitely encouraging, and it'd be really fun to see where the story goes for you. So by the end of the year.
I definitely want to keep you posted on it, man. And, if I could make about close to $1 million within a year, that'll be a great podcast to do if it happens. It's interesting because you hold yourself so humble, but yet you're sort of like following the rapper's business model, which is interesting because one of the last episodes that I did for the podcast, which was with a South Carolina filmmaker, Chris White, which is funny because he's a white guy. But it was but he was interesting because he was talking about the indie band it's the same
model,
thing.
Thing. And he's working his region because it's not only just South Carolina, it goes out to Virginia, Atlanta,
Georgia,
so all that kind of stuff. I kind of looked at it like I said, like that whole indie rock band, indie rapper thing, where when I do a screening, for example, when I did the screening in January at the college, UNCW Keenan Auditorium, we had 700 people in there, right? So I get to keep all that money. So that's $15 a ticket, 700 people. So I got that check, plus I was selling merchandise, T-shirts, as well, $20 a pop. So we sold a couple hundred of those shirts. You're a
so
rapper,
so that's what I'm saying, man. So whenever I do a screening, I make pretty decent. Whenever I do a screening, I try to get a venue that's, that can hold 300 to 600 people. If I can get something that's 1,000. And another way I do when I do a screening, it's interesting. I do the same thing a rapper would do. Like I will find certain radio stations where I'm trying to target my demographic. I say I want to try to target the African American community. Some radio stations have gotten hip to this, some haven't still, but I would do this. I would say, okay, I got a screening coming up. I'll go to the hip hop station in that area, in that city, and they have 1 or 2 hip hop stations. I'll hit them up and say, hey, I got 10 tickets here. I want to give them out over the air for free. Here's the little blurb thing you can read for it, and usually they'll do it. So it's like free advertising. I don't have to pay for the radio advertising. They'll just talk about the film and say, hey, we got 2 tickets, pair of tickets to give away. So that's the whole week. I'll give them 10 tickets, and they'll just give out a pair a day for that whole week leading up to the film screening. And I usually try to get about 3 stations. See, the thing is, some radio stations are hip to it because a couple I went to, they'll say, nah, that's free advertising. But majority aren't hip to it yet. So I do that all the time, man. I'll find 3 stations. And say I have a venue that's the whole 600 people, right? You're going to have to give away some stuff, and a lot of times people don't want to do that. So, okay, I have a venue that's 600. There's 600. I'll give away about 30 over the radio. So I'll find 3 radio stations to give 10 tickets each to. Right. And then also my other demographic, like I said, is African Americans. So what other things that African Americans do? They go to church. So I'll find the biggest, the couple of churches that have the biggest congregation in that city, and I'll get in touch with the pastor somehow and tell him what I'm doing, and I'll give the pastor a pair of tickets for him and his wife in exchange for just reading about the little blurb that I have to make an announcement in your Sunday church service for the next couple of weeks. And that time, a lot of times that works as well. So just getting out there, you're making him happy, giving him some tickets. He's excited, and they'll put in their church announcements over the couple of weeks, whatever, when they have a big church service. So those are some of the things, man. And then also just the standard flyers, distributing flyers and putting posters, stapling them on telephone posts and all that good stuff. Putting them up at different bars, restaurants, etc. So it's just a combination of all that stuff, plus social media as well and word of mouth.
How often, on a weekly basis, are you hustling? Taking the time, to drive out to a church, to make that phone call, to make that email. So, what have you found yourself doing in the course of a year, 2 years?
Almost every day. Yes, it's nonstop, man. But the thing is, it doesn't feel like work because it's actually fun. I
Mm-hmm.
actually enjoy doing it. So that's why, it doesn't. It's a lot of work, but it doesn't feel like work. It's not stressful or anything, and the time goes by just like that. It goes by real quick, and before you know it, it's already nighttime or it's the next day already. So it doesn't really feel like a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's I enjoy doing it.
Yeah. I'm always wondering if I want to circle back to the film because I know like
Yeah.
we talked about a little bit of what the film was, all the different hustle and the marketing strategies that
Yeah.
you've been able to do to
Yeah.
get these successful live showings and screenings.
Yeah.
And you're doing you're following the model of a rap artist. You're having
Yeah.
T-shirts, artwork, things like that being sold at the venues. So you're collecting as much revenue as possible in terms of
Yeah.
ticket receipts and give away a little bit, but hope to whatever you give away, the return investment on that should be a higher percentage than if you didn't.
Yeah.
What is, because there's the seriousness of the subject matter of this of Wilmington on Fire?
Mm.
Is there like a call? Is there a call to action at the end of the film? Is there something that makes people go? Because I mean, again, I don't know the whole story yet. I haven't seen the film,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
one of those things like I can imagine sitting through. Um, you know, what do we? What are we supposed to take away from this historical event? And then is there like a call to? Do you offer that kind of call to action at the end?
Yeah, it's pretty much a call to action of, it's pretty much the film is pretty much about, all right, we're in this situation because of this event. So we need to do something not only as people in North Carolina, but just the United States of America. Because the thing is, when you watch this film, you learn that this is something that the United States just let happen, and they never corrected it. And the people that were behind the massacre, not only them, but the people that were actually doing the killing. Because see, the people behind the massacre, they weren't out there with the guns shooting people. They just kind of orchestrated it.
Mm-hmm.
But the people that were actually doing the murdering, they were actually U.S. troops. So it's like, in the United States did nothing about it, and we've never corrected it. We've never addressed the issue, not only of the massacre, but thousands of massacres that have happened, and also just race relations in general in America. We've never dealt with it on a serious level, and that's what the film is mainly about. It's just not for Wilmington, but just race relations as a whole throughout America. And that's what really when people watch it, it doesn't matter where they're at, whether it's Charlotte, Atlanta, New York, they all get something out of it. Like, hold on, these things that I just saw, this stuff is going on in my city. The stuff is very similar. The way they're trying to change up the laws and and change up things to hinder a certain group of people. These things are still going on. So a lot of people, they kind of see, when they see the film, they kind of get something out of it because they see what's going on in their city or their community. They see the exact same thing when what happened in 1898 somewhat.
Is there a way to, I guess, take it to the next step and like, and I know the White House has something like if you get 20,000 signatures or something, they have to make an official response or something like that.
Yeah.
Is there a way to tie that in, to go to the White House, directly to or indirectly?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's like one of those things to level it up to say,
Yeah.
like, this is an event that happened, but we could see where it goes from this. Because I could see like somebody watching a film or then having like an easy sort of link to click to sign the petition to at least have whatever needs to be addressed, addressed. I don't know if that's like the next level up to be like,
Yeah.
Dear Mr. President, here it is, before you
Yeah.
like his term's over. Sometimes you never know. It's like, I'll look into this. Let me make a statement on that,
Yeah, well, I'm working on some things.
You're like, I'm one guy, just kidding.
Nah, you bring up a good point. We're working on it. Working on several things actually. Not only a petition to help push, because I'm actually going to do a sequel to Wilmington on Fire,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be like Wilmington on Fire 2. I don't have like a subtitle yet, but there's still more to the story that I didn't put in the first one, and a lot of that stuff is what you're talking about now, like what's the next step, and also about how they were supposed to do certain things back in like 2006, 2008 that they never did. And see, those are one of the things they were supposed to do, because they created this big 1898 race riot commission, right? Back in, I say, early 2000s. And they hired a historian to do an actual official state report on the 1898 massacre. And we have the lady in my film, actually, who did the report for the state. And they came to the conclusion that, we need to do something to correct this. And they came up with a series of bills. And one was like, actual compensation to the actual direct descendants, like some of the people that we have in the film who can actually prove losses that their ancestors, had during the massacre. One was to offer certain, educational programs to African Americans in the city, find a production company that could do a documentary about 1898, give them $500,000 to do it. Just all types of stuff. Put this stuff in the school curriculum throughout North Carolina. It was a whole series of bills. None of the stuff got passed. None of it got passed and just went away. And it was like back in 2008. And so those are the things I'm kind of going to, and a lot of people don't even know about it when I bring it up in the Q&A session.
Yeah.
And, so those are the kind of things we're going to talk about in the second one. And also what happened to people after the massacre. Like, a lot of them just left Wilmington, but where did they go? And a lot of them went to, other states, other cities, but a lot of them went to a place called Whitesboro, New Jersey, in New Jersey. And it's a place in Cape May County. And the guy who started the town, he was a black congressman in North Carolina back then. But when they did the massacre and set up the whole Jim Crow era, kind of restricting black people voting rights, he didn't get reelected again. So he pretty much said, you know what, African Americans, we can't do anything anymore in North Carolina. Let's move north. And he got together with some other investors, and they bought some land in New Jersey, and he created a town named after himself called Whitesboro. And a lot of people up there still know that history, that connection with 1898 and with Wilmington. A lot of them still come down to Wilmington, in the summer, and they still have that connection with their family, and they all know about that whole history and why they're living there today. So we're going to kind of capture those stories and show, what's going on in Whitesboro today and that whole connection with Wilmington as well.
Yeah.
So
Maybe they'll give you the $500,000 to do that film.
Yeah.
You've already done the proof of concept for them. You're like,
Exactly.
well, here,
It'll never happen.
Yeah. You can't say everything you've been doing. You're like, I'm just hoping 30 people, 600 people. That'll never happen. I'm gonna listen to it. Like, you'll have.
That was my dog. Hold on.
No, it's all good.
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
Oh, that's it. I mean, like, anything is possible, I think, for you and your journey to share this story, which is, I'm excited to see the film. Like I said, it's not just the subject matter too. Is like, I didn't know about this part of history of America, and then as well as just the packaging, just the artwork, the music, everything, everything you put together. The clips I've seen is top notch, and it's like, wow. And I can totally see, like, it'd be interesting to see what distribution companies, because that doesn't have to be the end all be all. So it's fine, because I don't even think they knew what to do with it. Most of them, like, it doesn't fit into a box. They know how to deal. But I'm excited for you to meet Christopher Rufo. I'll make that introduction.
Yeah, definitely, man. I definitely want to talk to him, and pick his brain a little bit, and vice versa.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we can, as we wrap it up here, I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Was there anything else? A lot of great tips, by the way, just of like how you were dealing with like promoting a film when you didn't have the film finished, materials you used, the hustle you used, the promotional tactics. I think it would be very helpful for other filmmakers to understand that it's not just like making something, put it out there, and fingers crossed.
Exactly.
And, yeah.
So,
but I want to make sure I didn't miss something, or if you want to
I know,
share.
like with screenings, for example, like, I know a lot of people always hit me up and ask, like, why I don't do a lot of film festivals. I don't know. Film festivals, they're just not really my thing like that. I'll do like one or two, like I did with Cucalores. And that's pretty much it. Because I feel like all the submission fees, I'll submit to a festival here and there. If I see something on, Without a Box or Film Freeway that catches my eye, I'll submit. But I'm like this. Over a period of time, I probably will spend like $500 or $600. I can use that to rent a venue, and just rent like a venue for like it has like 500 seats, and I can rent it for like 600 or maybe $1,000 that I spent on submission fees, and I can charge $10 a ticket and make a good, 5 or 6 or 8 grand,
Yeah.
off of my, So that's how I look at it, you know. And so I think a lot of filmmakers should really do that, like build your audience, because I'm constantly trying to build my audience, keep growing and growing, and really build your audience. Whenever you do a screening or anything, have your little email sign up sheet always to get people's emails, so you can have a nice, email blast system going on. Just break it down by, region or city or state or wherever you want to do it. Also, this other guy I'm trying to get on, I'm on his waiting list right now. It's just this guy, he's a singer. He's a singer slash producer. His name's Ryan Leslie. And he's created this great app, man. It's called the Superphone. And I've been looking into it, and I think it could really help filmmakers. And I've seen some more information offline, but it's a way where you can market your artistry, but it's not email per se. It's like through cell phone.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people, we check email, but we also check text messages as well.
Oh yeah.
So this whole thing is connecting with people, through the cell phone, through texting. And his app, it kind of shows like who supports him, who actually bought his album, when they bought it, how many albums have they actually bought, how many singles have they bought, how many tickets they went to. It breaks all that down, so you kind of know who your actual real supporters are, and you can kind of hit them directly. And I've been following for a few years. I had a chance to get on it, to use it, but I don't know. I waited too long, and then I got knocked off, and now it's a big wait. So, I should have signed up when I had the chance. So, but whenever I get off the waiting list, I'm definitely getting on. But it's called the Superphone, and I think it's a real good tool that a lot of filmmakers, can use to really connect with their customers, on a more intimate level.
Oh yeah, I know the real estate market, realtors use that a lot, where there's different technology with a cell phone where they'll ping you when the latest deal comes up or something. Like they rather communicate with you via texting than other means. That'd be fun to know these tools. There's another tip. Yeah. I don't know if you thought about it, but you could, as you do these screenings, to find out if it's in a region outside of where your hometown is, invite some of the program directors from the surrounding festivals. It's one of those things like well, here's a free ticket for you. It's one of the and then you have the in with how do you pronounce your local film festival again? The big one.
Cucaloris.
Cucaloris. But this is my bad English. My bad. Cucaloris. Yeah, because you've already had the connection with them. They might know other programming directors.
Oh, they do.
So I'm just saying that's one of the, like, if you're already, getting church members, you're getting like the radios play and other free tickets. Like that's just like one more influencer that could be like, all right, here's a program director. They might come and say, look at this event that's going on. I got to have this in my festival. And that's why you don't even have to pay. Like they come to you because they want it, as opposed to you pushing it onto them.
But so. I still look at it, man. Like, okay, if I do that, and then they have like a 500 or 600 or 800 venue, and they pack it out at 10 a ticket, I'm like, man, I could have just made $8,000 probably.
No, right.
But it's a win-win. To me, it still kind of opens you up to another market as well.
Yeah.
Another audience, so it's still a win-win regardless.
Yeah. You're true. I guess it's you can pick and choose. I mean, there's so many different festivals. There's so it's a matter to like what works best for you. I only saw it as most people independents are using the film festival as sort of their theatrical screening promotional tour. So they use it for that. But then again, it might just get you might do one or two and you realize this is not as effective as going directly to the audience. It's like kind of like you're being a rap artist. Where if you're solo, if you're the headlining act, people come to see you, as opposed to I'm part of this iHeart Music Festival. It's like
Now, I kind of like it that way. Man. I actually like I said, there's no knock against film festivals. I like them. They're cool. But I just don't. I don't know. I kind of like doing my own thing.
Yeah.
I like really engaging with people and doing the interviews and reaching out and being on the street, handing out flyers. Another thing I use as well sometimes, like digital billboards. Mm-hmm. They're kind of cheap nowadays. Like back in the day, you had to get the actual print billboard, and it cost you a whole bunch of money. Now you can get a digital billboard, man, for like 20 to $50 a day.
Wow. The ones that
and it's
just
like
that
they just
you were
change
driving
every
by,
8 seconds.
they changed. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do that sometimes. I'll get it for like maybe a couple of days out the week. Right before the lead up to and usually it's on a busy intersection. Where people are there. So those are some of the things, man. Just look into them. A lot of times, some of this stuff that's out there that we think is expensive isn't. And you just got to be willing to spend some of that money. Just say, okay, it's 50 or $80. All I got to do is just sell 8 tickets and I get that money back. So that's how I kind of look at a lot of things. Like I break it down my stuff like, okay, I spent $80 to get this digital billboard. I got to sell 8 tickets for that. I spent $200 on promotional materials and posters and flyers. I got to sell a certain amount of tickets to get that back. That's how I kind of look at it, whenever I do my screenings.
Yeah, for sure. Totally. That's amazing. I'm excited. I am, so people who want to see this film, they can only see it right now via the live theatrical venues, right, that you put on, or is it available?
Yeah. It's not available yet, but what I'm going to start doing is licensing out the film. I've seen a lot of people do that, like where you're at, someone in Oregon. Say if someone in Oregon sees this podcast, like, hey, I want to screen this here. And so they'll hit me up and I'll give them a certain fee. They pay a screening license and I'll see them a screener and they can just do their own, screening. So I'm going to start doing that because I want to kind of, the reason why I was hesitant about doing it at first, because I'm just real iffy of bootlegging and pirating. Because I've seen it happen to a lot of people where, they're sending out screeners and people setting up screenings and now the film is everywhere. It's online,
happens.
Foreign. But I'm looking like, okay, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So I'm just going to start because I want to get my reach a little bit more. And I've had people all the time hit me up in Minnesota, Texas, everywhere, California, that want to do a screening. So I'm working on a contract now in a method of, start sending out screeners and, accepting screening license and, fees and stuff like that. So if anyone out there that's interested in maybe showing the film in their city or town, just hit me up, spellerstreetfilms@gmail.com, and we can work something out.
Yeah, and I'll make sure I have all the information in the show notes when you go to this episode. So it's an absolute pleasure to meet you, and to see your project. And I'm looking forward to finally seeing it myself. And I'll look into
I'll email you a private link. After we get off the thing.
No, I want to buy a package. I'll private link, but I love the artwork. So I'll probably buy your art book too. So.
Cool. But yeah, like I said, man, I'm a fan of your podcast. I've learned a lot of things, listening to your podcast, and that's why I wanted to reach out to you. Because, like I said, I'm a huge fan, and I've learned a lot. And I'm going to continue to listen as well. And I tell people about you all the time. It's like, listen to this guy's podcast. They have a lot of good things. You'll learn a lot. So
thank you. I don't know anything other than I just like to ask the questions.
Yeah,
you know what it is?
I'm saying,
yeah.
But the thing is, you have a lot of people who have some good ideas, and also you have some good things as well. So I try to take a little bit from everyone. And I think a lot of filmmakers need to really embrace the internet. Because 20 years ago, we wouldn't even been able to do something like this. I'm all the way in Laurinburg. I'm like in nowhere land in Laurinburg, and you were like in Oregon.
Right.
So, filmmakers really need to embrace the internet a lot, because that's how I made my connections with the NBA guy, because of the internet.
Yeah.
So.
Unbelievable. And the work you put into it. So it's just amazing. And I'll make sure everybody gets hold of you again. So what's the easiest way to get hold of you? Say that again.
spellerstreetfilms@gmail.com.
spellerstreetfilms@gmail.com. Very cool. All right, Christopher, I'm excited to hear. This is only part one, because I know when November comes around and the event and all this time you have building up the bundles and the packages and all the other things you'll be doing, it'd be really, really fascinating to see the Turner events once it goes bigger for the event in a couple months.
Definitely. Yeah, we definitely got to do a part two.
Yeah. Definitely. You're always welcome to come back.
Cool.
That concludes my interview with documentary filmmaker Christopher Everett on his new film, Wilmington on Fire. And if you like this episode, think about leaving a ratings and review over at iTunes. Just go to filmtrooper.com/iTunes, and any type of rating or review would be greatly, greatly appreciated to keep this podcast going and getting it out there to more people. But wait, there's more. Don't go away empty-handed, because if you're stuck trying to make your film right now, then I invite you to get a free gift over at freegearguide.com. This is an equipment list of everything that I use to make a feature film with no crew. Again, that's at freegearguide.com. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the podcast, and I'll see you next time.
Film Trooper, filmmaking freedom for the independent.